Hello all! Today I'll be working on a trans pride weaving blank made with hypoallergenic acrylic yarn that was donated to me from Stephanie from her mother's yarn stash, and talking about what weaving towards trans joy means for me. I hope you enjoy. My name is Took. I'm a disabled genderqueer weaver who's had life take odd turns, but who knows that even tattered and worn yarn still has value, and that tired joints and health flares don't have to stop the journey. I weave exclusively with secondhand fibers, aided with adaptive warping, HR and OSHA cats, and a wonderful found family. Welcome to Hawksong Weaving, where all our paths are a little bit warped. I preface this video to say that if you're going to leave a hateful comment, thank you so much for the engagement. It really helps boost my channel to folks who actually want to see it. Also, get a life. Trans people make up 1% of the population. We are not a threat. You are actively being lied to by your government, and you're really weird for caring what's in my pants. And for the weaving bit, a bit of an explanation on why I've developed this adaptive warping method. I have hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which has cascaded into postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. So for time's sake, know that I have joints that don't work, and if I shift positions too quickly, I get pre-syncope or pre-fainting symptoms. All of this comes with chronic pain, so for a lot of reasons, a traditional warping board doesn't work for me, along with being really expensive and taking up a lot of space in my small studio. So I use an accordion coat rack as my warping board. It's nice and neat, it contracts into a nice smaller space, and I can adjust it as I need to. And I don't need to be up and down and all around and having tachycardia, a racing heart, that will stress out my medical alert cat Penelope. I use a Shocked Cricut loom. Shocked is the brand, Cricut is the product type of loom. This is a rigid heddle table loom, rigid heddle being what I'm warping through. This helps compress the weaving down and serves to separate the shed, or the triangle of space, so that I can pass the yarn through. Online, this loom ranges from $200 to $250. It's one of the cheapest and sturdiest options for a loom of its type. I've been asked before why I chose this loom, and the answer is I have imposter syndrome and lack of self-value. My partner offered to buy me a loom when I lost the ability to knit, so I found the cheapest loom on the market and fell sideways into a really good one. A bit of a time skip, all told that took about maybe 15 minutes in real time. With the warp thread sorted, I'm lifting up the loom to release the warping board from the loom, gathering the warp threads into one large bundle and using the back of my neck to drape them over and keep them tidy and out of the way while I collapse the warping board and get it tucked out of the way. I use terry cloth towels to cushion the warp threads. This helps prevent the finished weaving from being tighter at the ends and looser in the middle, creating a sort of sausage profile in the weaving. The way I warp has me cutting the warp loops at the end of winding the warp. This is what's easiest on my body. It won't work for everyone, but that's okay. This isn't a great angle, but I'm being careful to pay attention to how the warp threads are laying on the back bar of the loom, and the right hand thread goes through the smaller hole in the rigid heddle reed. It's not critical, and some minor mistakes aren't the end of the world, but it does help make it easier to keep the tension of the warp threads even across the entire weaving. I'd like to thank you for watching. If you'd like to support my work, some free ways to do that are to like, subscribe, or follow, and share. This applies to other small artists as well. It's a great way to let the social media algorithms know that this is content worth watching. If you'd like to support me financially, there's a Buy Me a Coffee linked below, which acts as sort of a tip jar. Also, now that there's so many of you absolutely fantastic and wonderful subscribers, I've been able to link the online Hoksong Weaving shop, so feel free to check out the unique hand-woven products. Also, apparently, y'all have just decided that you are a fandom and are calling yourself yarn brats, so there's that, I guess. What the heck? This YouTube thing wasn't actually supposed to work. But yeah, this next bit is absolutely a joke, but just in case, in this economy, I won't say no. For $1,000 a month, you can tell me that I'm not actually disabled, I'm just lazy, and to try whatever yoga, juice cleanse, snake oil nonsense fixed your cousin. Feel free to message me and I'll get you my payment deets. I take Cash App, Venmo, and PayPal for this nonsense. Also, some friends and I have started a new nonprofit, the Mill River Marginalized Artists Collective. The Mill River Marginalized Artists Collective, or MRMAC, provides support, resources, and opportunities for marginalized artists by marginalized artists and our allies. Right now, our main supports are being offered through the Vending for You program, where we apply to, advertise for, and attend art markets on behalf of marginalized artists. I'm one of the VIFI artists, and it's been really great so far. It's a fantastic way to get income into the hands of artists who might not otherwise be able to attend, and gets really cool art into the hands of customers. We had an incredible break with VIFI recently, which I will talk about in a bit. I'll attach all of the links down below. One of the best ways to help MRMAC is to follow and share everything we post in order to get our content past the algorithm suppression, because our existence has been deemed, quote, political, and apps like Insta aren't going to share our work as easily. Attaching the warp to the bottom apron bar is pretty easy. I finger comb it, get it separated into bits about 4 to 5 warp threads wide, separate these bits into 2, and then do a half hitch tie to the apron bar. And getting into the weaving towards trans joy. I'm trans mask agender. There, I'm visible. Woots! Some terminology for this video. Trans folks have an extended metaphor around eggs. An egg is a trans person who hasn't realized that they're trans, they're still in the egg. When they realize they are trans, their egg has cracked, often with the nomenclature of, oh, this and that or so-and-so broke my egg. My egg was starting to crack during the summer of 2020 when I downloaded TikTok and caught the end of the Byrit trend. But there were cracks in the egg well before that. I definitely engaged in what's called egg behavior. My egg behavior looked like desperately trying to figure out girlhood and then womanhood. I was raised by TERFs who had a very internalized view of masculinity unless performed by a woman as being bad and a dangerous thing, and it really messed me up for a long time. They'd likely protest being labeled as TERFs, but if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, and spouts the same nonsense as a duck, it's a frickin' duck. But I thought everyone hated being a woman, being perceived as a girl, and I thought that my hatred of it was making me a inherently bad feminist, and that eventually someone was going to catch me out. Turns out, nope, lots of women love being a woman. I just wasn't one. I've been unpacking a lot of this, but I realized at a young age that as a blue-eyed, blonde-haired girl, I could trade sweet femininity for safety from my peers with the adults around me. I was undiagnosed autistic, so I didn't know what was quote-unquote wrong with me, but dang if my fellow children didn't know and make my life a living hell for it. It was easier to bat my eyes and look up and say, I want to sit and listen to the witty banter of adults, than it was to go play with children who actively hated my guts. I tried so many different fonts of femininity, trying to find one that fit. I tried rebellious tomboy, but that didn't feel right. I tried super feminine makeup, but that was not a right fit either. I tried hypersexual librarian, that was really not right. Finally, I settled on cottagecore bisexual cis woman, but even that was just... It's like when your food has an unexpected crunch in the middle of a smooth textured dish and you're really hungry. You've got to eat, but there's a fear that you're going to bite down on something that's not right. And when you do bite down on that crunch, it throws the entire meal off. That may have been one of the most autistic sensory issues explanations ever, but it gets the point across. I didn't know that non-binary or broadly genderqueer was an option until I downloaded TikTok. I'd grown up with lesbian and trans parents, but they were both very binary in their respect to gender. There wasn't any room for nuance. And when my best friend as a teenager came out as non-binary on Facebook, both of them laughed and said that they'd call her they them to their face, but agree behind closed doors that it was incredibly stupid. So my egg didn't start to crack until TikTok, and didn't fully crack until I met my partners, and my relationship with them created a safe space to start questioning things. Over the years, I've gone through a couple different labels as I figured out the wibbliness that is my gender. I started by feeling out being non-binary, but that wasn't right. Then I wondered if I was a binary trans man, but that wasn't right either. Okay, trans mask non-binary. That fits, right? But I didn't have the amount of gender dysphoria that all of my loved ones were struggling with. So was I lying to myself? I didn't mind getting gendered as a woman while selling my weaving, or being accurately gendered as the eldest daughter at a thrift store. That was an interesting experience. Side note, I maintain that eldest parentified daughter is an assigned gender at birth that you cannot escape no matter which way you are trans or what gender you were assigned at birth, regardless of that one. It's just something that sticks with you for the rest of your life, and there's no way to get rid of it. Talking with people who are familiar with egg behavior, who knew me as a teen and young adult, is really validating. I've gotten a lot of variations of, yeah, I'm not surprised, you were trying too hard at being a girl, and you got really excited when you had to bind your chest for that one role in Dracula. And finally, I learned about the concept of agender and neuroqueer, which was a breath of fresh air. Yes, that. Just let me be me. I don't care what you refer to me as. I'm just going to be over here making my body more comfortable for me and acknowledging that part of my autism means that at my core bit of being, I don't understand gender as it applies to me. And that's okay. I understand that gender applies to other folks and that they feel really strongly about that part of their identity. For me, it's meh, while acknowledging that I like being perceived as sort of a guy and chasing that gender euphoria. Part of that is how I dress, but a large part of that is putting androgel or testosterone gel on my upper arms each morning and getting a double mastectomy. Because here's the thing, even if I wasn't getting gender euphoria and feeling so much better in regaining control of my body and presentation as a genderqueer and disabled person, I'd still want to be on testosterone and having gotten top surgery for the positive effects for my particular health issues. My gender, or lack thereof, is really tied to the other large aspects of my identity. I'm disabled. In particular, I'm disabled with a genetic collagen disorder, hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, that through my life has cascaded into postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, or POTS, and mast cell activation syndrome, or MCAS. I don't get gender envy in the typical sense. I don't see a person and go, wow, that's the gender presentation I want. I see a bowl of thick bone broth and go, wow, the soup has more functional collagen than I do. And for me, that's gender envy. And thankfully, transmasc gender-affirming care has some really great side effects regarding that collagen envy. Being on testosterone has drastically improved how my postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome affects me. By leaps and bounds, I'm able to drive again. I'm able to exist in summer without passing out. Admittedly, high humidity still kicks my butt, but testosterone has helped with the POTS so much. POTS is much more common in AFAB people, assigned female at birth people, due to blood flow and blood pooling in the abdomen. Testosterone shifts the patterns of blood flow so that it reaches my extremities much more easily and strengthens the blood vessel walls so that they're able to maintain blood pressure more easily. And it's helping with the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome too. Testosterone aids in muscle development. That's why it's a controlled substance, because gym bros misuse it. My joints don't stay in place on their own. I'm in physical therapy doing exercises that will help build the muscle around my joints so that between that and the exoskeleton of braces I'm gathering, I'll be in much less daily pain and can hopefully stave off becoming an ambulatory wheelchair user. I do have a wheelchair, but I try not to use it as much as I can because it is bulky and not designed for my particular needs, but it was free and I needed the opportunity, so I grabbed it when I could. But here's how I'm weaving towards trans joy. The Vending for You program I mentioned earlier, we're going to be attending the Trans Day of Visibility Resource and Art Fair. This is going to be so much fun, and I'm weaving as much trans pride flag merchandise as I can. I also have a new line of ornaments utilizing the scraps from these projects. They're in glass vials with a handwritten note of "Weave Your Own Fate." The trans community isn't perfect. We're dealing with issues like trans misogyny, passing Olympics, trauma Olympics, ostracization from the rest of the queer community, i.e. LGBTQ without the T nonsense, and Northampton and Western Massachusetts aren't perfect. There are a lot of older turfy lesbians, and while there's a lot of acceptance for trans masks, trans femmes in this area often face micro or overt aggressions, especially if they're non-passing. There's a tendency for people to view being non-binary as quote-unquote woman light, which doesn't leave much room for welcoming or even accepting AMAB non-binary people, which is thankfully an issue that most of the younger generations do not have, but again, because of places like Smith College, the institution of older lesbians as a problem, I'll be fully honest. But while we have our problems within our own community, there's still so much joy in being trans, in realizing that gender is entirely made up and that you can do whatever you want with it. I maintain that you haven't lived until you had a base trans femme per hosier at you. The joy of having a gender fluid bisexual hold you at sword point. The joy of sitting and swapping stories and making friends and realizing how similar you are. Trading clothing and resources and finding family. Finding love and hope and peace. Because we're 1% of the population, leave us alone. We just want to live. We just want to be happy. There's a post that's been going around for a while now. What you're doing right now is what you would have been doing in 1930s Germany. I'm helped start a nonprofit to support others like me. My loved ones are doing their best to survive. There's a safety bubble in Western Massachusetts, but that bubble is so fragile, and we don't know when it might pop. But we're here, we're trans. We're not going anywhere, and we will bury our dead in the morning, mourn in the afternoon, and dance all night. Well, weave all night, which is a form of dancing. We're here, and we're carving out what bits of joy we can. And sometimes that joy includes weaving with really cool, nice yarn that was donated by a follower. Getting towards the end of this blank, I'm tying off the fringes. I prefer to do 2x2 warps tied into a fringe of 4 for scarves, but for a weaving blank, I'll do a sliding knot and not really care too much about it because that bit is going to be cut off anyways, with the scraps used again for the vials or for the scrappy scented sachets that I make to make sure that everything in my weaving stays zero waste. Tying off on the other end, and soon I'll have a weaving blank to start making bags with. This has been an intense emotional journey, but one that I am so incredibly glad. In all of everything I've been through over the past 5 years, I've often said I would not go back in time and change anything because I would not risk it changing everything. I am so incredibly fortunate to be living where I am, to be doing what I am, to have the found family that I do, and I'm so incredibly glad I was here because my being here, again, was not a guarantee. But it's so worth it, and I made it, and we're here, and we're safe, and we're going to be attending all of these events, and getting hope and care and support, and just... We're here, and we get to live, and we get to be happy, and we get to have joy in who and what we are. And I've got a weaving blank that I'm preparing to turn into some bags. Thank you for coming along as I wove this and talked about trans joy. I'm so glad for the odd turn that your path took that brought you here. Thank you for spending some time with me at Hawksong Weaving, where we're all a bit warped. And I hope that you have a truly excellent week.